back to another episode of Pressure Effect. I'm your host, Will Mays.
I'm your co-host, Jace Daniels.
And today we have a special guest. But before we get started, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channels as we're trying to grow this brand. And let's get started.
Our guest today is my head coach, Oklahoma Christian. He's been there for 6 years now. My guy, Kendre Talley.
How you doing, Coach?
Man, thanks for coming, man. Appreciate y'all having me. I've been doing a good day, putting out some good information for the youth, man. So I appreciate y'all having me.
Yeah. So we finna get started. But first off, you gotta tell the people about your journey, how you got here, and what makes you want to, stay at this level, and keep being there for the kids.
Man, I had a kind of a crazy journey, to be honest with you. Started off in y'all shoes, man, playing high school basketball at Star Spencer High School. Was blessed to have deal with it. It's blessed to have a good career there, win a state championship in '09, and then got recruited to Oklahoma Christian, and that's kind of when I had my first interaction there. But after that, played there for 4 years, conference championship and everything. I had a really good senior year. Was blessed with opportunity to play overseas. Before all of that happened, man, I started one of my boys, Brandon Troutman, who's the owner of Solid Rock, which y'all probably played in. Before that, he had a one-court facility. It was called the Game Changers. That was the name of our organization. So we waited till Team Griffin and everybody had their tryouts, and we got all the guys that didn't make those teams. You know what I mean? So kind of started off coaching there, and then played 4 years, went over to Germany. Once I got back, I got straight into it. And I was in GA for Coach Hayes. Got my first assistant job at USAO under head coach Francis, who's actually at Chadron State, a Division II school right now. Then I got hired back as an assistant for a few years. Then I got promoted a few years after that, and here I am today.
Man, it's a long journey.
Very.
Yeah. So I know that you coach Jace over there. So Jace has something like.
Well, one of the big things that that I noticed, especially playing for your first year, is how passionate you are about winning. And just your emotions during the game. I remember that DBU game. We're up at we go into halftime with the lead, and you're hyped, that energy you have, and that's something that I've never had as a coach. Is just like someone who it feels like another player is coaching me. You feel me in the way you show your emotions and that passion that you have for winning and just having success. So what is that? I mean, it's kind of a stupid question, but where does that come from? Or how do you show up every day having that same type of passion that you have?
The reason I got into coaching, man, was to help guys like me. You know what I mean? And you can see by the teams that I recruit, a lot of them are like me. You know what I mean? Being a young coach, I think that's one of the most beneficial attributes that I have, is being able to connect with guys. You know what I mean? And like you said, it feels like I'm getting coached by another player, and I try to keep that same love to show that even though I'm not suiting up as I want to, you know what I mean, I can still encourage and try to motivate these guys in a different type of way. So that's how I do it every day.
Yeah. So I know me personally, I want to be coached by someone who's passionate. By you said that, you kind of remind me a little bit of Shad Smith. Now it does Horry. And after that, he coach, he's passionate. I mean, if you're not going hard, you just won't play. So when you recruit people, how much does communication matter just as much as skill? How do you look into that?
I'll try to look at it in a competitive nature, because I'll coach guys that aren't the loudest and the biggest dogs in the room, but they can still get stuff done. So you can just go out there and watch them in person, and you can see a guy compete. And I think competition will trickle down to the communication, and the teamism part of it, because that's the biggest part of it. You got to use other guys in order to make stuff happen. So if you get to go see those guys in person, you can see if they're, encouraging a teammate, if they're dapping them up, if they're encouraging them, try to keep their head up when they're making mistakes and everything like that. Those are some of the most important things when you're actually recruiting and watching a guy get after it live, So.
Well, one of the biggest, so I've been coaching a lot this summer, and a lot of the coaching I do, I use my own experiences, to get points across. So one thing that I've had to really nail in the kids is their attitudes, on the court. And I always tell them the story, and we may have had a conversation before, but one of the biggest things that any coach has said to me before was my visit we had. And the first thing you told me, or one of the first things you told me was how you didn't want me out of high school because of my attitude. And like that was one of the first times a coach had ever told me that. Even like, when I was coming out, high school in the JUCOs, like you were the only coach that's told me that, to my face and like been honest with me about it. And I always tell that story to kids, like the coach I'm playing for right now told me he didn't want me because of my attitude, man. And that was a big like eye opener to me. And it really like showed me like, dang, like that stuff really didn't matter. I mean, Schofield, if he was trying to beat it into me at the time, I wasn't, hearing it. And it was different to hear it, from you and, you put it out there. So with all that being said, like when it comes to attitudes and kids and, especially in high school, like really explain like how much that stuff, matters, especially at the college level.
Man, it goes a long way. Like I said, some of the things that I watch can just be an interaction with a teammate or interaction with a player. But body language is louder than a lot of people think. You know what I mean? But in order to play at this level, and you've seen it, I'm not going to act like I've recruited the best way and got all of the perfect guys and everybody was just coachable and everything like that.
Yeah.
But you'll be able to see it if you want to coach this kid every day. One of the coaches who's actually at Iowa right now, he said a quote in a video that he had. He said, "I'll never coach another emotional guy." You know what I mean? Because it trickles down. If those guys aren't being coachable and you can't coach them hard, you can't get the best out of them, and it's a fight like that every day, it's going to hold your team back. You know what I mean? And I've actually, being honest with you, I took some lumps before I met you to be able to even tell you that, because I've had guys that I've coached that aren't coachable, that have bad body language, that I thought had better body language and can be better teammates and everything like that. But I've kind of gotten to that point too where I'm digging deeper, and the guys that I'm going to go watch, I have to try to see them live if I can. I call multiple sources and coaches that I trust, because a lot of times coaches are going to be honest with you too. If you played against a coach, I know a lot of coaches in Oklahoma. So if I don't know a kid, how was this kid when you played against him? You know what I mean? And they're typically honest about that type of stuff as well. But it's the body language, man. You gotta control it, especially for you young guys that are on the court. Coaches are watching that type of stuff at every level.
So yeah, like I tell people, like people don't like believe it, but like from high school to college, totally from ball game. Like, I don't care how prepared like you think you are, it's totally from ball game. Because like me, like coming from Millwall, I'm used to winning. Always play. I always just had success. Going to college is like total change. It's like I'm going there now. I'm starting all over. I'm a freshman. I cool myself again. But like once I got there and like I kind of show like my habits that I built from high school, it kind of put me in a position because like now like I'm a captain. Like so this past season, I really wasn't playing as much as I wanted to. I was still captain, so like my role was bigger than basketball. Like, my role was like to keep the team together and show them like like basically just be like the face of the team. So like as a player, we always wonder like what are like other ways that like you can impact the team other than scoring. Cause like now like a lot of guys want to go score 30, do this and lose, but it's like I'd rather have 4 points, and just be that positive role model and get a win. So like what are other ways to affect the game other than scoring, especially at the D2 level?
So I'm gonna give my opinion on it. And I think that it's just a different generation of entitlement. You know what I mean? I was talking to an AAU coach the other day, and he's like, "Well, this kid's a D1 kid. Now for sure this kid's a D2 kid." Yeah. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, these kids you can't just put them on a level based off of the talent that they have. You know what I mean? Because there's so many other factors that go into it. But when you ask that question, we had a kid on our team, and Jace could tell you, I coached him for 2 years. His name was Bryce Kennedy. And I've had many conversations with him. He was not the most talented guy on our team. You know what I mean? He was our unsaid team captain. Like everybody knew that Bryce was the guy who was going to show up on time, who was going to do everything the right way, or was going to handle himself off the court the right way. And he ended up starting for me over guys that were better than him, talent-wise. You know what I mean? So that's what I would say. I think you're a captain for a reason. You know what I mean? You're doing stuff the right way. You're leading by example. It might not be always, I'm going to go get 30. You know what I mean? But a lot of guys now, it's like in order to get to college, in order to get to the next level, I got to go hit 30. I got to go score the most points. When there's some guys out there that are just solid in all areas that are going to end up being better basketball players and have better careers because they're consistent with that. They don't care about who's scoring the most. All they want to do is win. And that's like the main thing that I'm going to preach to our guys this year when we move in and everything is I don't really care who scored the most. I don't care who our best player is. That stuff works itself out. You know, all we need to do is do what we need to do to win. So that's just kind of what I would say outside of to just straightforward answer your question. It's the punctuality. It's the going to class. It's the handling yourself the right way. It's the, representing the program. And as my dad would say, you represent your family as well. You represent your last name. So to me, that stuff is some of the most important stuff that you can do outside of just trying to go score baskets.
So, we've talked before about like, your high school, you went to Star Spencer. How many times did you win state, right?
No, we won state my 1 year, my junior year, and we went to the
Which I was always competitive.
Jess.
The my still here. Coming up in Star Spencer, getting into college and kind of winning it, like established that you could, do something past high school. And how did you cut out, especially in high school with the distractions there are now? And then when you were growing up, like how do you cut out from the distractions and the other things, around you to get to where you had to get to?
Man, I would just say it takes a village. I think having a good family foundation was the biggest thing for me. Spencer is a rough area.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When I go back home now, people are like, man, I'm so proud of you. You're doing something good with yourself. At the same time, a lot of my AAU teammates, I got teammates that have been locked up. I got teammates that are, rest in peace, are not here with me anymore. You know what I mean? That we did everything we could to try to stay on the right track, but it's so many, factors that could steer you the wrong way. So I would just say my family, man, and my faith. At a certain point, especially when I got to high school, my boys, they knew what I was about. They knew that I wanted to do something with this game. So if something was getting crazy and we were out, hey, Talley, go. You good? You need to get out of here. Talley, what you doing up here? No, you're not doing nothing. And sometimes you might seem like a sweat. But if you really want this game to take you as far as you want to go, all of that stuff that, living for the world is what I say. All of that stuff that's there is going to be there. But you have to make sacrifices in order to be good at this game, in order to go as far as you can go. Even as a coach now, I got friends that still just go out and do this and do that, and I separate myself from that. You know what I mean? As bad as I want to, I'm not gonna say temptation is easy. Because I still every now and then I mess up. You know what I mean? I lose my focus, but it's tough, man. And I think as long as your circle, man, it's about who you keep around you. Even you guys being around each other now, it's like you want to make something of yourself. You want to do something good. But if you got guys that's not here to film, if you got guys that are not here to try to get your posts and everything right, you know what I mean? They're going to slow you down. So at some point, I think you got to eliminate, the bad apples in your circle, and it's hard to do. Keep people around you that want the best for you and that are like-minded.
Like you said something that I think that younger athletes really need to focus on more is that stop living for the world, because there's a lot of people who want to do stuff because they're a friend. But for me, I realized that my calling is different. So once my friends knew that I'm serious and I want to take my life, my best friend didn't let me go anywhere. And then, now they're at first I was oh y'all hate it, but now I see because they trying to protect you from this outside world. So I think younger athletes, they really don't understand that hanging around wrong people can really hurt your recruitment, just because like I said last episode, college coaches only know so much about you, that what you put on social media, that is basically who you are. And so what do you say about people just hanging around wrong crowd, or not even that, just portraying their social media to be something that's not what you would want in a student athlete, which is focus on sports, student grades, all that.
First off, man, I think the posts are 100% right. You know what I mean? But nowadays, even when I get film on kids, it's a link to their Twitter, and if I hear, a cussing version of Young Boy in the background, I'm already having a perceived notion. I can see it. You know what I mean? If you're posting out all the time, or if you're cursing on your stuff, it's certain. I'm at a Christian organization for one, but you know what I mean? I think all coaches are what type of kid is this? And then it's going to even go deeper to your family and what type of family and what are they letting you do? You know what I mean? So I think that stuff is important, like I said, with your circle and who you hang around and everything like that. but you got to have somebody to hold you accountable, and I'm not saying put all your business out there, but at the same time, you can be who you are. You can still not forget where you come from. You feel what I'm saying? And at the same time, you got to know that this is a business. You're marketing yourself on your social media, because a lot of coaches are going to be coming out and watching that stuff. So I know you say you might have put out a post about that type of stuff, but it's super important because coaches are going to go look into that.
Yeah, every time I get a chance, like I try to push that social media out because like I've seen so many people just have all the time in the world, but that social media man killed them. And it's like, dude, like for me, like my AD watch my stuff. So, like it's bigger than my coach. Like like my AD is on Instagram watching my stuff. So it's like, dude, like I gotta make sure I'm right because I'm like a perfectionist. Just not myself, my family, my coach, the school, and my team. Yeah. So like we all been through dark times in our life. We all been through adversity. Well, I want to know like how did you find God? Like how did you find God at your toughest moments? And what made you from trying to run a guy? Cause I know Jace had a story where he wasn't playing and he runs all the other stuff but God. And then as he realized that he actually got deeper in the word, he realized the only person he can run to is God. So like yeah. So like how did you find God in your like darkest moments? Even if it's through sports or just through life. Cause like a lot of athletes these days they just trying to do other stuff like partying, just trying to drink, smoke, just to get their lawn off what they're going to do. But I try to find God because like in the day like all that stuff's so like at some point you want to heal from. Sure. So like how do you find God in the moment?
In those moments, man, I think it's very important, and it's kind of it's a quote, right? It says, "Drink before you thirsty," right? I think you got to prepare yourself for those tough times. Even as a coach now, like a lot of times, and people know I coach, people know that I was a good player and everything, and I feel like I'm a way better coach than people get to see because they judge winning and lose, So I could lose a game and I can go into a dark place. Jason, he's been there right hand with me. And sometimes you don't understand why things are going a certain way. So as my granny would tell me, she say, you got to stay prayed up. That's how you go find your faith in those deep moments. So I try to be intentional about taking time to dive into the word, so that when those moments come, I don't have to question why is this happening. I don't have to question who the people around me. I don't have to question my team. I can look at it and still try to see the best in the product that we had, and also see the best in myself because I'm more than a coach at the end of the day. Yeah, I know a lot of times you don't define yourself as a hooper. I'm gonna define myself as a coach, but our purpose and why we're here on this earth is way more important than that. So that will be my advice: is to stay prayed up and drink before you're thirsty. You know what I mean? Prepare yourself for those moments so that you can have that shield of armor. You know what I mean? Before you're going into those battles. If that makes sense.
Nah, yeah, close. Yeah.
I mean, I was sitting here listening to that, and I was kind of thinking about like with those struggles and things like that because we've talked about before, and we had conversations in the office about during that the beginning of the season I was dealing with struggling, not coming in, not really playing as a junior, and it being a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. And one thing that we don't talk about on here a lot that I've always like it's become important recently is like mental health, especially with athletes. And we talked, and I told like I'll be honest on here, like I struggled with needing validation for teammates early on. I told you that. Like I don't think good dudes think I can play. Like how do I deal with that? And that's another mental thing that athletes probably deal with that they don't talk about. And so mental health has been really important to me the last like probably year because I thought it was like stupid, especially when NBA guys start talking about it because like bro, y'all got all this money. Yeah, we were talking about we're upset for like and so I thought it was like taboo, just like something that really isn't there. And I've dealt with it 2 years of, we're not really 1.5 years of like, my college career. And it was hard because I didn't know how to deal with it. Yeah. I didn't want to open up, because as, especially as guys, we kind of try to keep stuff. We got to try to, oh yeah, what you upset for? Like, you got to push, get through stuff like that. And how would you, especially for athletes, how would you give advice, like, getting through, mental health phase and stuff like that?
Honestly, and just being honest, I have a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like we just talked about, we're winning and losing and things. I think it's important it's not nothing to be ashamed about.
Yeah.
You feel what I'm saying? If you're struggling with something mentally, I mean, they have sports psychiatrists. It's actually sports psychologists out there to help guys out. You know what I mean? Even from just being in a specific situation for free throws and little things like that. And I think as black men, especially, we gotta take care of our mental health because it is a problem with us. You know what I mean? So when it comes to figuring out ways to handle it and everything like that, I think you have to find someone that you can confide in, to have those conversations with, that are good, that's going to keep encouraging you, that's not going to be, biased to just tell you you're right about everything that you're doing. Because a lot of times, man, it's stuff that we can't control, that we want to control, that we can't. You know what I mean? Especially as we talked before, validation of others. You got to go earn it in a different type of way. I don't know the specific science to get what you want out of something. You know what I mean? Just little things like that. Because I think as humans, man, we don't have all the answers. So it's important that we have a good support system. And if we have someone that we can reach out to for help, you can find someone in your family like, hey, I'm struggling with this. Let's talk. That's why I try to create that safe space as a coach too. Like, you can come in my office. I don't care if you played, you didn't play, you scored, you didn't score, and this can be a safe space. You got girl problems, you got life problems. You don't talk to me about it. And I think in the role that I'm in, it's super important that I try to create that type of environment.
No, it's like when you said, especially as black men, we're expected to just like
be tough.
Like you can't talk about your feelings like that soft, or your label is soft, and I think that's why a lot of people don't do that. And I know a lot of people personally who have said that, like, man, like I don't want people to think I'm this, that, and the third, and I feel like that's why a lot of, and even with athletes as well, like we're supposed to just go out there and perform and not, have these types of feelings that we have, and that's something that I have really took more notice to the last 2 years, especially getting older. And again, being around athletes who have dealt with this, and older guys who have dealt with this, and guys who I look at as like, man, like what you mean you're upset, about this, time, and third, and they open up to me and tell me why they're upset. And it's become very important for me, especially the last 1.5, 2 years. Sure.
All right, so at the end of every podcast, we try to give some advice to the youth. So, what is your word to the youth? Your advice to the youth, like not even in sports, but just in life, but mainly sports. What advice can you give the youth to help them translate to college?
What I would say to the youth is, you got to put your all into it. Nobody's owed nothing, especially in the sport of basketball. But just in life, you got to go earn everything. And then the other thing I would say is just, you got to be real with yourself. If you think that you're at a certain level, and you think that you're going to be in a situation to go compete against somebody at a different level, whatever the case may be, you got to do everything you can to set yourself up for that. And with that, it's not just the talent; it's the total package. It's the grades. It's the way that you carry yourself. It's the character. It's the respect that you have for others. All of that stuff is kind of combined. So if somebody was to tell me that as a youth, I think I would be in a better position. And I had great role models. I had a great family, but understanding it in my position now is even more important. So I would just say, it's a total package. It's not just the talent. It's the total package.
Well, thank y'all for
I have one more question. Go ahead. Coming up, man. Sure. What are you most looking forward to? This upcoming year, man.
Honestly, the one thing that I could say is that I got a team full of guys that I'm gonna enjoy coaching every day. You know what I mean? And I feel like I said, I feel like I'm a really good coach, and having a very coachable team is going to help me showcase that this year. I think it's going to be a super fun environment where we can go in there, put the gloves on and rumble with each other, and then walk out the court, and go eat and break bread with each other. That's the type of team that I got this year, and I'm super excited about it. We're in a tough conference, and we know what to expect now. We got some good returners, and I'm ready to get after it.
Well, I am too, man. Like I said, I appreciate you coming on here. I told Coach Johnson, he tell you the same thing, man. Like, y'all were the big, like, when it comes to coaching and just being like, like brother, the family type of vibe, and y'all helped create that. And it was a big reason why I wanted to come back and play for you guys. And you bringing in Coop, just adds on to someone that I'm familiar with. So yeah, it's gonna be a good year, and I just wanted to let you know I appreciate the last 2 years, and the guys coming back. We ready. We already had a conversation, man. We trying to turn it up next year. So I just want to let you know I appreciate for the last 2 years, and you coaching me the last 2 years for sure. Like,
Not make it a thing of what they ain't there.
You done?
I'm done now.
I know that.
I'm done.
So thank y'all for tuning in to the Impressive Effect. We this is one for the youth. Gotta listen to it. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned for this. Next couple episodes about to get crazy.
So you want toes on the next one?
Nah, I gotta wait. All right, stay locked in.